and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Perhaps these are not the last days. And obviously I am not young. But let me give a clarification. My comments must not be construed only in the context of the strategic plan that Beverly laid out so brilliantly. They are based on my perception of the Caribbean reality and possibility, and also based on what I've heard over the last 2 days, and my appreciation of some of the great movements of our time, the movements of the suffragettes for feminine equality, the movement for the liberation of slaves, emancipation of slaves, eloquently pointed out in Hochschild's book, Bury the Chains, and Doug McAdams' work on the civil rights movement, and what great movements have done. So I've built some of the things I'm going to say about my appreciation of how movements have been formed and what they may do. And if I appear to be grandiloquent, such is the nature of visions, of those who will do more, who will more than likely not see them realized. Because I am liberated from the responsibility of crafting a vision for an organization or movement for which I have responsibility. There was a time when I had to do that for an organization for which I had responsibility. So I have the freedom now to craft a vision for an organization for which I have no responsibility. I'm also making the assumption that you're asking me to give a vision of what the movement will become. Because I take it from all I've known and all I've seen and all I've heard, especially with the last 2 days, that a movement already exists. So what I'm looking is not towards a new movement. I'm looking for what the present can become. And I'm looking beyond the strategic plan horizon of 2021. So my task is to create a mental image of a future state that is memorable and motivating, as inspiring enthusiasm and encouraging commitment by all its devotees. So my vision is of a mighty association of Caribbean people and organizations, united in a grand design, stripped of sectoral and linguistic chains, and driven by the urgency of breaking the advance of NCDs in our space. I'm not have a vision which there's no NCDs, but of breaking the advance of NCDs in our space. But any vision which is by definition related to things to come cannot be divorced from what has gone before. And of course, you recognize the 12th commandment: in this great future, you can't forget your past. But we have no tears. We have no tears to dry. To the contrary. And we should rejoice in how far the movement has come, and we should rejoice in how it has grown. And for this, I must give credit to those who started it, those who got it here, principal among whom is Trevor Hassel, his godfather, and his godmother, to whom we should give credit. But we also have to consider the present context, and I will try to refer to 2 aspects, only 2, which I think are important. First is the focus in health at this time. I'm an enthusiastic and unapologetic supporter of universal health care, health coverage, unapologetically supportive of universal coverage through a process, as we described in a paper of ours, of progressive universalism. However, I worry that the current enthusiasm for this new truth, which, irrespective of the qualifying statements, focuses primarily on individual care and may lead to some delinquency as regards the broader determinants of a people's health. The other new truth is that of precision medicine, which seeks to direct care towards a specific individual and a specific individual's specific problems and pathologies. And I have a little worry that universal health care may lead to forgetting the need for the prevention of NCDs and be caught up in the problems of secondary and tertiary care. Of course, we must have statins and dialysis units, of course, but we must not have them to the detriment of the less glamorous and more equally critical prevention. And it's not an either-or situation, as I point out. Sorry?
Somebody out there.
Oh. I thought it was a disagreement. It is not an either-or situation. And I said before, yesterday you heard me say, one of the problems we always have, as I said to Jeff as well, being arrested at the level of binary thought. Is that a right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no? And as you get older, you realize it is just not like that. And I would refer you to an excellent article published by Julia Frank and Octavia Gomez in last week's Lancet, which set up 7 or 8 things in medicine which are this way. Try to make a division between things in medicine, when in reality we should look at an integrated approach and not separate one from the other. And because I always thought also, and I always taught, that about 60 to 70% of a population's health comes from outside the healthcare system, and that is a modest assessment. The second contextual issue which I would raise is this. Much of the euphoria that attended the demonstration of population and community-based approaches to controlling NCDs, such as the cardiovascular disease in North Korea, came from a different epidemiological era. Today, not that these approaches are not important, but there are other variables that must concern us. An example, the classic one, is obesity, which has been described as the tip of the spear of the drivers of NCDs and ill health globally, and which is coming into prominence. And I always like to evoke the image of the 2 sets of forks. We are digging our graves with 2 sets of forks, literally with one and figuratively with the other. But enough of context. I always contend that any vision without values and valor is vanity. Any vision without values and valor is vanity. And I will mention just two sets of values I see civil society in the Caribbean embracing. Of course, there are others, as Dr. Barnett pointed out. But the first which he mentioned is the one which is near and dear to my heart, that is one of equity, equity in health. And equity is applied to NCDs. I'm viewing the problem of equity of NCDs through an equity lens. Because I see the civil society movement venturing out of its comfort zone and involving groups that are not traditionally involved in advocating for prevention of NCDs, but are concerned with equity. This is a passion of mine, equity, because I believe it has been one of the themes that has been perpetuated in health. And I think the reduction in inequity has to be one of the pillars, the nub and the pith of global health. I always say, to treat the unequals equally is a distortion. Aristotle said that. The greatest form of inequality is to treat unequals equally. And another one of these is areas of inequity, is that it is highlighting what I call the miasma of ageism. And I agree that premature mortality is important. I agree, and I have published myself arguments that NCDs kill us in our most productive years, those years below the age of 70. And this is of significant economic importance. I don't decry that. But it's not because of personal status, and I urge that we do not forget that our Caribbean populations are aging, and NCDs are increasingly affecting this age group. The fastest growing age group in the Caribbean is those that are 75 years and older. And I see consequences and opportunities in this approach. And because I see the NCD movement embracing other civil society organizations that concern themselves with the older persons, but have not hitherto been really aggressive advocates for NCDs. Such, for example, as the Barbados Association of Retired Persons, which is represented here, the Caribbean Association of Retired Persons, and analogous groups throughout the region. The second group, which is concerned with equity, which I would urge that which we embrace warmly, is those groups that focus on gender issues. The impact of NCDs on women is clear. It is elusively clear. And they suffer both the health and social consequences of NCDs. And there's now an abundant literature on the extent to which NCDs have a major impact on women. And much of this is not related to their biology. Much of it is related to their gender. So I ask, What about mobilizing women's groups throughout the Caribbean to advocate for NCD prevention? And I've often contended also that women, as a matter of self-interest, not only related to their gender, but as a matter of self-interest, must be concerned with preventing early mortality from NCDs, because widowhood and female poverty make for a noxious combination. The second value which I see the movement embracing is that of justice. Justice. And this applies to several aspects of NCDs throughout the life course. And the one I've spoken about most often, of which Sir Trevor recently highlighted brilliantly in Barbados, and James Hospitality's champion in CARFA, and you've heard a lot about it here. Childhood obesity generated much discussion here yesterday, and I must congratulate you, Marsha, on the scorecard. And the fact that they are fat children represents an abrogation of the responsibilities of governments to protect the rights of the child. All governments, as was pointed out yesterday, are signatory to the Convention of the Rights of the Child. And that convention states clearly, children have the right to good quality health care, the best health care possible, safe drinking water, nutritious food, a clean and safe environment, and information to help them stay healthy. Rich countries should help poorer countries achieve this. It is for this reason, when you discuss what should be done to put stop a break to this increase in childhood obesity, I enthusiastically support your efforts as regards reduction in consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, and I congratulate the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and I hope the domino will fall throughout the Caribbean, that see the Caribbean as a whole taking a regional leadership again in putting an end to the overconsumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. I was intrigued yesterday by Vincent Atkins' affirmation that the decision of the CARICOM organs are community law, and this gives health. And really I had the vision, the idea then that maybe we could have an organization have standing before the CCJ in order to present this kind of case. But then Ronald Bissessar made a very keen point, which I take, brings from his rich legal background, that the CCJ in its original jurisdiction only deals with matters that are part of treaty law, a part of the Treaty of Chaguaramas. And to the extent that this is not included in the Treaty of Chaguaramas, it's a matter of debate as to whether we would have standing in an effort to move it forward to the Caribbean Court of Justice. But of course, this is a matter which I'm sure can be debated and discussed, but because the resolution of it will have tremendous significance for what we do. But I have to confess I have a leaning towards Ronnie's interpretation of our standing in this particular matter. And what about valor? This is applicable in several senses. It can refer to the courage to embrace other Caribbean countries and enter dialogue with what Philip Sherlock used to say when he spoke of the wider and the deeper Caribbean. We cannot be impeded by the fear that partnerships outside our comfort zone will necessarily lead to loss of identity. And there is also valor in addressing frontally the relationship with the private sector and not letting our legitimate concern for conflict of interest hobble appropriate, relevant, productive associations. As Derek and Jeff pointed out brilliantly and lucidly, conflict of interest is normal. In any set of interactions, conflict of interest is normal and is only improper when primary interests are influenced negatively by secondary interests. Sometimes when I've sat in meetings, and I have sat and wondered, when you see delegates of certain countries frothing at the mouth when they decry what has happened in the arms industry. I was at watching recently in a particular country and watching the Independence Day parade and watching the missiles go past. And they're the same countries that say we have nothing to do with the arms industry. And where do the arms come from? Those very countries produce the arms which they're arrayed against. That is the hypocrisy of the deepest dive. Derek Yak, in a recent article, points out that the old tactics of demonizing industry have to be modified in this new dispensation. We should take this to heart. The almost knee-jerk demonizing of the private sector is something we should always rail against. Of course, there will be value for the mobilization of resources from other two sectors, government and the private sector. I know it could be difficult to hold these two to account and still have financial partnerships, but I insist that difficulty does not mean impossibility. There is a growing tendency throughout the world for governments to contract civil society organizations to do things which formerly government did, both to produce private goods as well as to produce public goods. There's a tendency, and there are lots of reasons why governments are doing it. One of the things that we have to be, know about and be concerned about is the appropriate contractual relationships between government and our civil society organizations when they function initially what I describe as a principal-agent relationship. Because in a principal-agent relationship, there's not necessarily conflicts of interest. Where we want to find our relationships with government is a stewardship-type relationship where there's conflicts and conflicts of interest. And valor also means consistency over the long haul, having the strength to carry on. There must be commitment to the long haul as much of what you wish. And I laud the strategic plan going up to 2021, because much of what you wish will not happen within the ambit of one strategic plan. Perhaps the most difficult obstacle to seeing that vision realized is that of maintaining interest. How do you maintain interest of those who are involved? You are here because you are dissatisfied with the status quo and you want to change it. All movements of this nature have that as their fundamental ethos. They want to change the status quo. But I contend that the imperative is never to let the winter of discontent merge imperceptibly into the spring of complacency. So let me hope that you and those who come after you keep that before them. And for that reason, there'll be constant need for succession planning. But I know that succession planning doesn't come easily in movements such as these. So I end by wishing you good luck and hope that there are those among you who will see the realization partially or in full of a vision I have for society, NCD movement in the Caribbean. Thank you.